All right, good morning, everyone. I am Drew with Learning Upgrade, and today we're going to be going through our very first training webinar. And so this is going to be a general webinar that's going to cover all of the, the best practices and key details for getting started. So we're going to start out, we're going to be covering some information that'll be useful for those of you that haven't gotten started yet, and then for those of you that
Hello,
have
this
gotten
is
started.
Carol Larson, and I can't hear you.
Okay.
Chat.
Is anyone else able to hear me here?
Drew, I can hear you fine, so it may be an issue with the one person.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask, I'm going to mute everyone here, and then I'm just going to ask you to remain muted. So let's see, check speaker and mic. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like everybody else can hear me here. And so we will
check
continue.
speaker. It says check speaker.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask everyone to stay muted here. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. Some of you are already utilizing the chat here to provide some feedback on my audio. So today we're going to start out, it's been incredible, starting out with the win of the Adult Literacy X Prize in February. We've added hundreds of accounts just in the last month. And so I know a lot of you are new. Some of you have already gotten started, and some of you are looking to get started now. So what I want to start out with is, just kind of go over an overview of what we're going to be doing today. And so everything is going to center around our getting started guide here with these 4 steps. So some of you may have already gone through that teacher training. I know we've done a few webinars for sites. We've done a few with our partners like CoAbe and Pro Literacy. And also we just did one with WorldEd. And so in that teacher training, this is going to be the core of what we're covering today as well. And in that teacher training, we cover steps 2 through 4. So the first one is going to be in student onboarding. And so for student onboarding, most of you that have had a pilot or a license with us, you'll know that you started out and you got that getting started email. So in the getting started email, you were provided with your own username, password, and school ID, and that's going to provide you access to your tracking account. And then you were also provided with information on how to get started enrolling students. So we have student self-enrollment and we have teacher-guided enrollment. And I'll be showing you how to do both of those in a live demo today. Many of you, that started with us before April, you didn't have access to that student self-enrollment. You were just with the student-teacher enrollment. And now that we have the student self-enrollment, with one class code, all of your learners can get started on their own with an onboarding party. So here's an overview of what we're going to cover today. Some of you that have already started your license, you'll be familiar with the first few steps here. But the very first thing is just starting out as a teacher. So what does that mean? You're going to get your email from me. That's going to be from your pilot or license. And then for those of you that are, a member of a communities competition team, you're going to be getting an X Prize email. The biggest one is number 2. When we send out our pilots, all of you, you get one teacher tracking account, and we keep things simple. You have one account, you manage one class with your learners. But what I want to show you today is for those of you that are working at larger sites, we do have the ability to have an admin when you have multiple teacher accounts at one site. So if you have multiple teacher accounts, let's say you have 20 or 30 teachers at a community college, then you can also have admins that are then able to view site-wide data and then also view each one of those teachers. I'm going to cover the onboarding options. And so for onboarding learners, I'm going to show you how to get that self-enrollment guide. I'll show you as a teacher how you can create accounts on your end. And then I'll show you how to go in if you're at one of those larger sites. Let's say you have 30 teachers and another teacher already added students. I'll show you how to reference the class list to add existing students to your account. Once we've created the accounts for your learners, then it's going to be important to track that enrollment and their initial progress. So I'm going to show you the best monitors and reports that you can use to make sure that all of your learners are getting started in real time, making sure they're in the appropriate course, and making sure that none of them are falling behind. After that, I'm going to show you how to organize classes. So for those of you that have gotten started, you'll know that by default, we start with just a single class. It's named after your last name. But I also want to show you how to create additional classes to organize larger groups. So if you're in a situation where you have a Tuesday, Thursday, then a Monday, Wednesday, you also do evenings, you might do weekends, you have an after school type program. I want to show you how you can create a class for every single one of those, and then add new students into those classes, and then also add existing students from your other classes to populate that. I want to show you how to edit the student accounts and courses. So sometimes we have teachers that want to change a username or a password on a student account. We also have situations where, let's say I want my learner in English Upgrade 3, but I want them to start on lesson 14 or 15. I'm going to show you how to move a learner ahead in a course. Then the last thing we're going to cover is the reports. How do we view our class-wide? And then if we do have admins, how do we view that site-wide data? So what I'm going to do now is, I just wanted to start with that introduction, give you an overview of what we're going to cover. And we are going to jump into the live presentation now. So let me just open up our account here. All right. Okay, so for those of you that have a brand new class, and that means that you requested a pilot or you have a license with the communities competition, you're going to get that email from me, and in the email, it's going to give you a login for a teacher tracking account. And so when you log in, this is what you're going to see. It's going to be a blank slate. It's going to be empty. There will be a video that'll walk you through some steps to get started. And then there will also be instructions provided in that email. And so the first things I want to show you is just the general layout. So the name of this menu here, when you first log in, this is what we call the teacher menu. And then when you're in the teacher menu, what you're going to see is we organize things in these 5 blue tabs. So you're going to start out in the first tab, which is students. And then I'm going to be able to show you courses, classes, teachers, and reports. So when you first get started, what you're going to look at is you're going to make that decision. Do you want to enroll your students on your end, or do you want to have your students self-enroll? So you'll know that when you get that first pilot email, the very first paragraph, it says, hey, this is the student self-enrollment. Click this PDF link to get started. And so you can also view that when you log into your tracking account by clicking self-enroll. So when we click self-enroll, all the instructions are going to be here. You can save this PDF. Step 1, download the app, and then it'll walk your learners through every step on how they're going to download the app. Click get started, enter this 7-digit class code, and when your learners do that, they're going to automatically then be enrolled into your class, and they're going to show up here. So that's been the most popular way to create your class, since we launched it in April, is to have students self-enroll, because all they have to do is download the app. They are provided with that 7-digit code. They plug it in the getting started phase, and then everybody's automatically going to be in your class. So what we like to see there is what we call an onboarding party. And in an onboarding party, for those of you in a classroom setting with a blended model, you have your learners in a room, you set a date, set a time, you have all of your learners come in, and then you can have those 1-page PDFs printed out, and you can walk your learners through those steps one at a time. Now we have, PowerPoint slides that are available to all of our Learning Upgrade license holders, and you can use those, and it'll just have screen grabs of every single step, and you can just go through those 6 steps, and then in one phase, you'll have everybody ready to go in your class. So that's the student self-enrollment. That's the most simple, it's the easiest, and it's the best way if you have a large group that you want to get onboarded quickly. So Moving away from the student self-enrollment, the other option to create your class and get started is to do it on your own. And so instead of clicking on self-enrollment, we're going to click on Add New Students. So when we click on Add New Students, we're going to see our student uploader here, and we're going to have a few options. So the first thing we want to start with is our name. And so with the name here, we can just type anything in. So I'm going to put my brother in, and then I will also do myself. And so you'll see that the first thing you'll want to check is that the number in parentheses matches the number of names you've put in. Then they'll also match here in first and last name. Now, if you're doing a small group, okay, you can type them in. But what most of our teachers do is this is when they have, 150, 200 students that they want to get started right away, and they have an LMS that they're using at their site. You can export that and make sure you have each of the names in a spreadsheet column, and then you can just copy and paste everything over. So if you have 200 student names, you just copy from your spreadsheet, and then you can just click here into the entry field, and you can paste all of those names in. So by default, we're going to start with a simple first name, last name. When you use a first name, last name, from that point, you're going to select a grade level, and then you can select a course. We've gone over courses in other webinars, but we have 21 total courses, and you can select anywhere. All these are available to you, all 960 lessons. If you don't know where to place your learners, you can go to the Learning Upgrade homepage and click on courses. We do have placement tables. So if they've taken a CASAS or TABE test, go to learningupgrade.com, and the menu click courses, and there you'll find our placement tables. You can directly enroll them here. Or if they've never taken a test, you're not sure where they are, just enroll them in the placement, and then Learning Upgrade will assess them and get them started. And so that's the best way to do that. You'll want to, enroll them in the correct course. And then the last thing I want to cover is just username, password. So by default, we're going to automatically be generating these usernames and passwords for your learners. JDoe, it'll be first initial, last name, passwords, 1 letter, 2 numbers. Now, for those of you that have a little more data on your students or you want to be importing more, we do have other formatting options. And so if you want to, do last name, first name, and if you have an internal school ID at your site, or if you're in workforce, you have a personnel number, or if, whatever organization you have, if you have a unique ID that you want to have imported with your student accounts, then you can just select this option. And then when you copy and paste your spreadsheet over, just make sure you have those 3 columns the same way it looks in the name format. We also have the option to import an existing username and password. So if you have like an internal login that they're using for a district ID, and you don't want your students to have to memorize an additional username and password, then you can then in that case, you would have 5 columns in your spreadsheet, copy and paste it in, and then that would be good to go. Almost all of our accounts just do first name, last name. And then in that case, we're just going to automatically generate those usernames and passwords. Once we're happy with the way everything looks, we'll click enroll. In this case, I already created a Drew Robinson. And so I wanted to show you this because a lot of the times, we might have a class that enrolled 30 students and I share those students. And so what you're going to see here is if that student already exists on your Learning Upgrade license, you don't have to create a duplicate. We're going to let you know, hey, there's already a Drew Robinson at this site. So you'll have 3 options here. You can say to enroll as a new student. That means they're not a duplicate. So there's 2 Drew Robinsons. Add existing student, that means this is a duplicate, and we're going to add to class. So that's what we want to do. Drew Robinson already has an account at my site, but I want him to show up in my class. So now I'm going to click done, and you'll see now that I have these 2 accounts in my class. So this is my morning on Tuesday, Thursday, and I have both of my adult learners here. They're enrolled in courses. And, from that point on, they're going to be good to go, but I need to now provide them with their usernames and passwords. When learners are self-enrolling, they're going to see their username and password as soon as they've self-enrolled. But in these cases where you're creating accounts, you're going to need to provide them with that information. So what you'll want to do is click on the Print Passwords button. When we click on Print Passwords, now we're going to see our account information, and you'll have a bunch of different ways to view that. So if you have a larger group, you can do a full list and view it more as a table, a spreadsheet table. And then for those of you that would like to provide all of the information, you can click these one-page smartphone guides. They'll get their username, password, school ID, and then they'll also get information on how they can log in on a computer and also how they can download the app and access their courses through the app. So that's going to be the Print Passwords, and that's the thing that we're going to use once we've created these accounts. We can also use it for the learners that self-enroll. A lot of our learners will self-enroll, they'll get started, and if they're on a shared phone at home or maybe they're on a prepaid phone, they might not remember their username and password, and then they get a new smartphone and they want to pick up where they left off. So you can quickly and easily access all of your student account information by clicking Print Passwords. And then we also have a nifty feature here. If you just want to quickly reference it in class, just click Show Passwords. We're going to add 2 additional columns, and I can say, okay, you're D. Robinson, M58, and the learner will be able to log in. So that's the initial student onboarding that I wanted to cover. That was step 1. And so, you have 3 options. The first one is going to be self-enroll. The second one is going to be adding new students. And then the third one is one that's going to be important for all of you who are working at sites with teachers who are enrolling shared groups. And so that's where we're going to click on Add Enrolled. And when we click on Add Enrolled, now we're going to see all of the students that are on our site account. So for those of you that asked for a pilot and you're the only teacher, this isn't going to be something that you'll use. But I know a lot of you are at community colleges and larger groups where I've received 4 or 5 different account requests. So if you do have shared accounts where a student shows up in multiple classes for multiple teachers, you can click on Add Enrolled. You'll be able to find all of the students who already have accounts here, and all you have to do is click Add. You can filter down by name, by grade, or by student ID, but if your group isn't too large, just go ahead and click Add next to any of the names. Now when we go back to the teacher menu, all of our learners are going to show up here. And so that's a quick way that we can reference everybody. And then once they're in your group, just like you did before, you can click on Print Passwords or Show Passwords. So those are the 3 options on creating your class and onboarding students. The first 2 are going to be like new account creation. So that's self-enroll and add new. And then for existing students to populate a class, you can use Add Enrolled. So those are the 3. Just wanted to cover those. That's how every single group is going to get started. And for those of you that have not gotten started yet, this is going to be the most important phase of your getting started process. Now, the second thing I wanted to cover in today's webinar is what do you do, when you do have multiple teachers and you need an admin account. If you need an admin account, those only come from us. So you can just send me an email, drew@learningupgrade.com. Let me know the name of the individual that needs an admin account. And then once you have an admin account in this admin choose teacher to view, when you click that drop down, they're going to be able to view all of the teachers on the account. And in the reports, they're now going to have a view all option where they can see site-wide data. So after you've created your account and you've got things established with the teachers, you have an admin hierarchy. Now as a teacher, what you'll be able to do is you'll want to keep track. So you've just created a brand new class. And so what you're going to want to do is make sure that everybody's logging in and making progress. You don't want anybody to fall behind. That first week is critical for the learner. For those of you that are having onboarding parties, what we like to see is to have every single one of your learners complete 1 or 2 lessons in that very first session. We see the individual time on task really jump when we're able to get them to complete those right away. So, for an example, let's say we just did an onboarding party, our learners self-enrolled, and then we also created some accounts for some learners. Everybody's in my classroom now, and we're having that session. So I want everybody to complete a few lessons in the next 30 minutes. So, all the learners have their logins, they're getting started. So how do I now, monitor the activity? So the very first thing you're going to want to do, we're still here in the Students tab, is click on the Student Monitor. So when we click on the Student Monitor, you're going to see all of the courses for your students loading up. And then they're going to display in the monitor here. So for those of you that haven't attended any of our, like Learning Upgrade app or course webinars, we have 21 courses, and every single one of the Learning Upgrade courses has 60 lessons. The learners move through one lesson at a time, and they need a 75% to move from one lesson to the next. If they get 75 to 89, that's what we call a bronze. You'll see those here. If they get a 90 to 94, they get a silver. You'll see those. And then if they get a 95 to 100, they get a gold. So what we want to look for in the student monitor is if we see a lot of bronze or a lot of red, and in these accounts, these reds mean that they didn't get that 75. So they're going to have to repeat that lesson until they get above, and then they can continue on. So if you're just viewing this, this is live. It updates every 5 minutes, or you can just click this update button down here, and we're going to refresh it for you. But if you're doing an onboarding party or you're having a session where your learners are completing lessons in real time, you'll want to have the student monitor up, and a green arrow is going to show over any lesson that's completed today. So all of those will just be populating in real time. You can watch, make sure that none of your learners are on Facebook or YouTube instead of completing Learning Upgrade lessons. And you'll also be able to see, if they're in the correct class. For those that are taking the assessment or being enrolled based on previous assessments, they'll be where they need to be. If a student directly enrolled during self-enrollment in a course that was a little too difficult, you'll be able to instantly see that as well. And so some best practices for the student monitor, when you're first logging in here, just keep an eye out for any vertical lines of bronze. That means your whole class is struggling, but the big one is just red. So what you want to do is anytime you see a red, you'll want to hover over it. And what you'll see here is you'll get the name of the lesson. So on the far left, you'll see the names. Then you'll see course abbreviations. So for English Upgrade 1, E1, English Upgrade 3 is E3. Math upgrades are all M1. So we just abbreviate our courses that way. So we'll see here that Lily is in English Upgrade 1, and she's working on the beginning blends A. And the learner has tried it 5 times, and the high score is 66. So this is an opportunity to work with this learner, maybe one-on-one. This is a content area they're struggling with. And it looks like for an entire content block, they've been struggling. So starting out here with vocabulary, bronze, capitalization, bronze, punctuation, they're just getting, a lot of bronze. And then they, of course, have the red at the end here. And so you can see that for a few of your learners, when they're not getting the silver and gold, it's a quick way to just eyeball this report and, work with that learner. And then the same thing, if you see something where it's class-wide, we do have whole class lessons for our teacher whiteboards that enable you to do these classes on a smartboard for your whole class lessons. So let's say you're looking at the student monitor here, and you identify a student that's really struggling. What you'll want to do next is view their individualized course report. The student monitor is a great report to get the big picture for your class. You can see who's logging in, who's completing lessons in real time, and you can see a general idea of how they're doing. But when you want to look a little bit deeper, what we'll want to do is go back to our teacher menu here. And now we're going to leave our students tab behind, and we're going to go to the courses tab. So in the courses tab, we're still going to abbreviate the courses, but now each course is going to be on an individual row. And what you'll notice that we've added is there's a report button now for every single one of your courses. So here we were talking about Lily, and the other one was on English Upgrade. And you'll see every single one of these learners. We can view their activity by viewing the report. So for Lila here, English Upgrade 143, let's view this one. So we'll click Report. And what you'll see in the report is we're going to get some general information on logins, last played, and their current level. We'll also see the amount of time they've spent on the lesson, on the lessons in total. Then we're going to get some content area scores. And this is just a quick reference to see how they're doing on the content areas in the course. So we'll see, literature is strong, informational, needs a little bit of work. Same with listening. So we're at a bronze 79 there. And those initial scores are low on a lot of these. And so that means when the learner is first attempting these lessons, they're starting out with a low score, 56 out of 100, and then they're able to move those up, in this case to 84, but in informational only up to 79. So these are the content area, the subject area scores here. The biggest one you'll want to look at for a quick reference when you're looking at these individualized course report is this graph. So in the graph, you're going to see the lessons now displayed from left to right. You see one here, 43. Once they complete all 60 lessons in a course, we'll display all 60. But what you'll see in blue is going to be their initial score. And then when they repeat that lesson to a higher score, you'll see the high score. So you can hover over these data points to get information. So we'll see here on words J to R, the first attempt was a 20. And then the student was able to move that score up to a 90. So that's a huge improvement. We see there's quite a few lessons like this. But what you will really keep an eye out for is if you see any of these valleys that haven't been filled in yet. And that's another area where the learner could use some one-on-one time or an opportunity to work with them. For those of you in libraries, if you're working in a library model, this is huge. A lot of the libraries we work with have a really long waiting list. And so when the learners come in, they get learning upgrade and they'll work on it in their waiting period. So when they finally do meet with a tutor, that tutor can now dive into these reports and see the exact areas they need to focus on. So when you're, a tutor or a teacher looking at this report, really see the areas, these valleys that haven't been filled in. And then once you just eyeball the graph, you can get an idea. We have character setting, we have point of view, we have nouns. We can see all these lessons where they're struggling, and then we can dive into the table below and get a little bit more information here. So we'll see the high-end initial score, but what's really important in the table that you want to focus on is the times played and the minutes played. This is critical to making sure our learners don't fall behind, get overly frustrated with the content area that they're struggling with. We'll see here for capitalize, the learner started out at 35% out of 100, took the learner 6 attempts and almost 2 hours to finish. So this could have been something where if they were working with a tutor and the teacher was monitoring this in real time, they could have identified that struggle after 2 or 3 attempts and been able to work with the learner on capitalization. And so this is a great report to view that individualized course data, and every single one of the courses has that. And again, to get to that one, you're just going to click on the Courses tab. And in the Courses tab, you're going to be able to view a report like that for every single one of the courses that your students are enrolled in. And so I want to pause there. We've covered students and courses, and it looks like Vinod is answering questions in the chat. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Vinod. And I just wanted to let everybody know that there is a chat feature available in Zoom. So if any questions do come up, feel free to use that chat feature. You can provide your questions there, and Vinod will be able to help you answering those. And then I'll be able to field a few of those questions as well at the end of the presentation here. Okay, so we've covered students, and I just want to just do a quick midway recap here. So in students, we covered onboarding. So we have the 2 new creation methods where you can have your learners self-enroll, or you can create the accounts as a teacher. For the learners that already have existing accounts, we click on Add Enrolled, and we can view them from the entire site roster. Once we have our learners with their accounts, we're going to want to provide them with their username and password if they don't have them. We'll click on Print Passwords to do that. Once they have their login information, we want them to start completing lessons right away. And when they start completing lessons, we can monitor that in the Student Monitor. Once we view the Student Monitor, if we want to dive in deeper on any of the student courses, we come to the Courses tab, and now we can view those individualized reports for every single one of those learners. So those are really the core features of the Students and Courses tab. Now I just want to quickly touch on some things that I get questions on quite a bit. So for those of you that want to move a learner up, let's say they start out, on lesson 1 and you want them to be on lesson 20. Next to the report button, you'll see that every course also has an edit button. So if we click on edit for this one, English Upgrade 2, you'll see the learners on 2. We want them to be on 32. So we just type 32 in, update, and now the learner is on lesson 32. So when, Zamira logs in, this student will have access, all the way up to 32. And so this is important for those of you who, the student really needs to be in English Upgrade 2, but we want them to start midway through. Or we have some teachers that want to assign lessons. So my learner doesn't need to go through all 60 lessons. What I want them to do is I want them to do 14, 22, 38, and 52 today. And so if you want to do something like that, what you would want to do is unlock the entire course. So as I mentioned, every course has 60 lessons. So you'd go edit, current, you would just do 60. And now that's going to unlock all 60 lessons. So when the learner logs into their account, they launch English Upgrade 2, they can now click on any one of those assigned lessons, and you'll be able to view the reports, the individualized reports, and see those still populate on the student monitor, just like the students who are advancing one at a time by default. So that's one of the most popular questions in the emails that I get is, how do I move a student ahead? So again, that's in the Courses tab, and you can just click the Edit button to move them ahead. So now that we've covered students and courses, I want to talk about organizing your classes. So for that, we're going to go to the third tab here, the Classes tab. So what you'll see in the Classes tab is I already have quite a few classes created. And so this is a great way to organize your accounts for those of you that have multiple classes where you need to view reports that are going to be specific to those groups. And so we make it really simple. In the new class field here, you can just type on the field, and all you have to do is, you can name it anything you want. And so here we'll go Drew Demo Webinar. Then we're going to click Create, and we'll see it comes to the top. Student 0, and grades, we don't have anything because there aren't any students in there yet. What you'll see here is, for those of you that are, doing family literacy, most of you are going to be adult only on this webinar, but for those that are K-12 as well, you'll see the range of learners in your group. So from here, it's 4th grade to adult. Here it's 4th to teacher for the teacher whiteboard. And so you'll be able to see the range of students, and then we'll also show you the total number of students enrolled in each class. So now that I've created a blank slate class, this is the Drew Demo Webinar. I'm going to go back to the Students tab. And now when I click on my class dropdown, I can view this new class that I've created, and it's going to be empty, just like that very first one we looked at. Now that I've created the class, I can go through those 3 steps I showed you at the beginning. So if the learners are going to be brand new, we can have them self-enroll. And the nice thing is when you click this self-enroll button, it's going to generate a unique class code for every single class that you have. So if you wanted your learners to self-enroll into all 5 of these classes, and you didn't want to have to organize things and do it that way, just select a class. You could do weekends. When you're on the weekends class, click self-enroll. You'll see the ending here is 167. When we go to our new one here, Drew Demo Webinar, self-enroll, 576. So all of these are going to have a unique class code where your learners self-enroll. That's option 1 for the new class. Again, you can create them on your own. Or what most of you will be doing is you'll have, your very first class, which is a master, for Robinson 2019. I'm going to add all 100 students that I see from, this entire term. And then when I organize them, all I have to do, since they all have accounts, is click on Add Enrolled. And then I can find them and organize my classes that way. So now we have a few people in my class, and everything's good to go for the Drew Demo Webinar. So that's really the entire feature set for classes. It's just a way to create new classes. And then once you create those classes, then you'll go back to the Students tab and go through that process that we started with. For the Teachers tab, for most of you, all the Teachers tab does is show you what your username and password is. The Teachers tab is really important for admins. So it's not something I'm going to cover today. I'm going to have an admin-specific webinar later for those of you that are Learning Upgrade admins and want to get more into the feature set there. But just to let you know what's available, you can view all of the teachers at your site. You can change passwords, view usernames, and edit account information for each one of the teacher accounts at your site. So that's students, courses, classes, and teachers. And so before we get into reports, I just wanted to cover one last, quick bit on the students. And so that's, how do I edit a student account? So I showed you how to edit a course where you can move a student from lesson 1 to 30, or you can unlock all 60. Another question that comes up is, how do I edit the actual account information? Maybe by student self-enrolled and they spelled their name wrong, they entered the wrong student ID. Just like there's an edit button in the courses tab, there's also an edit button in the students tab. So if you click edit next to any student name, you're going to get their information. First name, last name, you'll see their username, password, and school ID. Then you can also change their grade level. And then for reporting purposes, you can look at their languages, first language. And then, we also have our course advanced features. So, by default, when your learner is in the Learning Upgrade app, they can, let's say they're on English Upgrade 3. Once they get a silver certificate, that means every single lesson is 90% or better. We're going to automatically advance them to English Upgrade 3. So the next one, if they're on English 2, we move them to English 3 when they get a silver. That's default. If you want to control that entire process yourself, you can do never advance, or you can make them, you can lower the bar. Once you get a bronze certificate, you can advance to the next one. Or if you want to raise the bar, you can make them get a gold. So for each student, you can set that. And again, that's in the Students tab, and that's edit for every single one of our student accounts. So one of the most important things, another FAQ that's a quick bit, is in Adult Ed, we have a really high turnover. We could have 30 learners on January 1, and then we come back and look at our student list just maybe a month or two later, we could have 20 new students. So it's really important for us to make that a simple process and to make sure that, your seats are transferable. And so when you're in the Students tab, all you have to do to free up space, you'll see on here available, we have 346. So in the Students tab under License, you'll see that there's a Remove button. All you have to do is click Remove. Now we're at 347. So that student account has been removed from the license, and their account is now inactive. Now, make sure you don't just click class, because if you remove from the class, they're just going to be removed from your class here, but their license will still be active since they could be on other accounts. Now, let's say Zamira comes back. What happens? So we go to courses and we say, okay, no courses show. We can click on Show Expired. When we click on Show Expired, we have the option to renew. We'll see there's a lot of activity here. So we can just renew to full course. Now we're back down to 346, and Zamira can continue working on any of the courses that we've reinstated. Another FAQ that comes up is, what happens if I have students that show up in multiple classes or have multiple courses? How does that work with the license? Every single student you see only counts once. So a student can show up in multiple classes under multiple teachers and have multiple courses, but each account still only counts once. So you'll see here, this is 4, and it doesn't matter how many teachers add them after the fact or how many courses they eventually, play through. We consider it 1 seat for the license account. So that's everything on the students, courses, classes, and teachers. The last thing I want to cover here is reports. So you'll see in reports, we have a lot of boilerplate reports on the left, and that's just going to be some general account information. You'll see learners that have earned certificates. If you just want to view student passwords, level reports. What I want to focus on today is going to be the custom reports on the right. So the first one is going to be our student progress report by date. So when we view the student progress report by date, we get to set our start date and our end date. So this is a demo class with some old information, so I'll move that date back. And then what I'm going to show you here is, in this new class I created, the Drew demo webinar, I only have the 4 students. So this is what's important about organizing classes, is I can quickly see this new group that I created. In the drop-down, I can also go through my other classes and I can see information on everyone's doing. But I can also go up to the top and say all classes, and now I'm going to see data for everyone. And so what you're going to see here is by default, we're going to show each one of the courses on a row. So you'll see English Upgrade 1, English Upgrade 3. If you click on any of these links at the top, you can sort. So now we're going to sort by high activity, and we'll see how many hours learners have spent on their respective courses. And you can do this, you can dial down to the day, you can dial down to the hour even. But the most important thing I want to show you here is just to get a good idea for that time on task. So what you'll want to do is if you want to view English totals, and that means, let's say a learner completed English Upgrade 1, 2, and 3, we want to see how much time they spent in total on our English lesson. So if we click English totals, now we're going to give you the max there. So we'll see that 50 hours were spent by Ashley on our English Upgrade courses. You can do the same for math if you just want to see the math totals. But what most of our teachers want to see is just, how much time did they spend on Learning Upgrade in total? So in that one, we're going to go all by student. And now each student is going to show up on a row, and you're going to be able to see that data on, okay, they spent 92 total hours in the time parameters that I set on Learning Upgrade. You can click that hour to see when those levels are completed. And so what I want to do now is we're going to look at the reports here. And I want to show you this one here. So this is the student time report by date. And this is a brand new report. So for those of you that have done webinars with us in the past, this is a report that we just started in May. So I'm going to switch over to a new account here with live data. This report is only going to show data that has been logged from May 1st on. And this is going to be our new session time report. And so the reason this is important is we just got approved for distance learning in Virginia, and we're looking to get approved in other states. And one of the criteria was to have this report for session time. And so what I'm going to do now is switch over to this account, and I can give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay, so for the student time report by date, this has been huge. Everybody's been asking for this, and what you're going to see here is now you're going to get your student names, and you're also going to get their session details. So you'll see their start times, their end times, the amount of time in minutes that they've spent on each session, their scores, the courses, the names of the lessons, and then also the device that they spent it on. So if you have, a computer lab at your site, and they're working on, let's say, Windows computers, then you're going to see Windows. If they're working on Chromebooks, it'll say Linux. If they're on Macs, you'll see that. But then you're also going to see iOS and Android, so you can see how much time is spent on mobile devices. You'll also see subtotals for that time. By default, we're just going to look back at the last week. But again, you can set this as far back as May 1st, and then going forward into next year for your new accounts, you'll be able to view their entire session history. So this is another great way to view reports for your learners. And this is the newest report that we have. And again, to get to that one, you'll click on reports, and then you'll see here the student progress report by date. That's the first one we looked at. And the one I just showed you is the student time report by date. So those are the two reports that are the most used. The first one was in the students tab, the student monitor. It's a monitor, it's also a bit of a report. But for table-based reports, you want to focus on these top two custom reports. So now let's see here. All right, so back to the slides. And so that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in today's webinar. I wanted to leave the remaining time for questions. I'm going to open the chat here. Some of you can also unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question using the mic. And then I'll also provide my contact information. But just to do a recap, I kind of wanted to go back to our main 4 steps just to dial it in again. The teacher training, So for some of you, you've gone through a webinar, which was a full teacher training. Today was just a bit of a greatest hits and best practices for when you do get that email from me. You know, you have your pilot information. It includes your instructions for enrollment and also how to access your teacher account. But what I was finding is I was answering the same questions over and over, and it's really helpful to be able to see those steps in real time for steps 2, 3, and 4. So the key takeaway is for those of you that haven't gotten started with your pilots yet, or for those of you that just only added a few students and want to grow a little bit larger, make sure you log in to your teacher account and then, have a plan. So either, commit to self-enrolling and have an onboarding party, or create those accounts for yourself. For those of you that want to have, larger access there, then what you want to do is have your other teachers ask for accounts, and then we can set up admins. And then once your learners do start completing an activity, then you'll want to view the student monitor and the reports to make sure that everybody stays on track. So for the first question I have from Haven, when I want to display a lesson to an entire class, do I need a smartboard? What if my computer has smart notebook software, but I display it via a standard projector? Yeah, so that'll depend on it looks like Vinod answered that for you. So yeah, you can use any projector or big screen. The only time you need a smartboard is if you want to actually interact. So we have some of our blended classrooms that have smartboards. And the cool thing there is that the learners can actually go up. You have 30 learners in a class, and they can go up and touch the projector. And, let's say they're working on pronouns, they'll be able to use drag and drop and answer the questions on the smartboard. But you don't need it at all. If you just have like any old school projector, you can just plug the VGA or HDMI into your laptop, and then you can do that on your own computer. So you'll just click the buttons, and just like you would using it through the web. And so let me actually, what I can do here is I want to show you, for those of you that haven't gotten started with your teacher whiteboard, I want to show you how to do that, because we do include those teacher whiteboards at no cost to all of you that have an account with us. And so what I'm going to do is open up a new account here so I can show you what that project looks like. Okay. Okay, so let's go back and we will share the browser here. So what you'll see is just what I was showing you, the teacher menu. And then when you're looking at your teacher menu, I showed you all of these add account options. And then you'll see on the far right, this one says Start Teacher Course. For those of you that haven't gotten started with the teacher whiteboard, it'll say Add Teacher Course. So first you'll click Add Teacher Course, and then when it's added, it'll add to your account here. But then you'll just click Start. So when you start your teacher whiteboard, you're going to have access to every single one of the lessons, and all of them will be gold. You can click on any lesson, start any one. And the nice thing is, the learners, when they start a lesson, they get the instruction, in the form of a song. Then they play the game. And when they play the game, they move one at a time. In your teacher whiteboards, when you click on those lessons, you can just play the song, you can just play the game, you can just do the intro, or you can go through the entire lesson as a student would. So the teacher whiteboard will give you an unlimited, unlocked version of Learning Upgrade, all 960 lessons, and you can pick and choose any part of those lessons that you would like to access. So, that's going to be, a really nice feature. We have a lot of our pilot teachers that are using the teacher whiteboard, but we also have a lot that just aren't aware that it's available. So for those of you that would like to use those whole class lessons, you all have the ability to do so. And again, in your teacher menu, just click on Add Teacher Course and then Start. And so here we have from Cecilia, so can students use it on a laptop or desktop, or does it have to be on a mobile device? No, so students can use it on any web-enabled device. And so what I'll do here is I can show you what it looks like for one of your learners if they wanted to use let's say a Chromebook or something like that. And so let me share my browser again here. And so what they'd want to do is, it's easy if it's on a mobile device. If you're on an Android device, you download the Learning Upgrade app in the Play Store. If you're on an iOS device, you download the Learning Upgrade app in the App Store. Once they get that username and password, they can just go to learningupgrade.com. And just like you as a teacher, when you log into your tracking account, you click Login. So when you click Login, you have your username, password, and school ID as a teacher for the teacher login. But the student can just click Student App Login, and it's going to look exactly like it does on their smartphone. So they'll go through the exact same steps, but here I am just in a Chrome browser, and I can access Learning Upgrade just like I would on a smartphone. So yes, if your learners, it's a completely, any web-enabled device, they're going to be able to access their courses. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any other questions here. Just wanted to let everybody know that those who registered and attended, everyone will be getting a link to the recorded version of this webinar. So I'll be able to provide that to everybody. And then that way also, if you have, colleagues that wanted to attend but couldn't, you'll be able to do that one. And then let me just check the chat one more time. So I'm not seeing.
Okay, Drew, Vinod here. I just want to go over a couple of questions that people asked that I'd already answered, but you might want to dwell on a little bit more. One was moving students ahead, and in particular also being able to move them all the way to the end at level 60 so that a student can jump around to any lesson they want, versus by default, students will start on 1, have to get above 75 to go to 2, and go all the way in order.
Yes. Yeah, so I did show that one. In the courses tab, each course has an edit button, and then you can just enter any course number in there. So if you want them on 30, you just click 30 and update. If you want them to jump around, you can click 60 to unlock it. And so yeah, in the courses tab, each course has an edit button, and they'll be able to move the learner ahead in that course to any lesson that they choose.
Right, and another question was, during the lessons, can teachers pause what they and so they can discuss what's on screen? There is a pause button during the songs and the intros at the top of the screen, so you can pause and you can play. If it's during one of the game activities, of course, we pause every question, so you can answer it. And we also pause after the remediation help. So if you're doing those on a teacher whiteboard, there's lots of pauses there.
Yeah, and another thing to add there is it's, we don't time our lessons. And so the learners, they get the instruction, but when they're playing the game, they get to work at their own pace. The only lesson that's timed in our courses is the final challenge. So each one of our courses has 60 lessons. The learners work through 1 through 59, and then 60 is that cumulative test. That's the final challenge, and that's going to be the only one that's timed. So the learners do get to work at their own pace, however they're comfortable. We do have in a lot of our, upper level math, a lot of our learners that like to have a notebook and write things down, work through problems before entering it in. So that's not a problem at all. And then, so I think that's everything. And then I just, my contact information is here, and those of you that, did register for the webinar received an email from me. So if you have any other questions, or if there's anything else that comes up, anything you'd like clarification on, just send me an email. This was the launch of this very first webinar for us. And so we wanted to start in the spring, and then we'll be working throughout the summer. And then starting in the fall, we're going to be doing 2 a month that are going to really dive into some of what you saw in more detail. But what we also want to do is, have, questions and content areas from you. So as an instructor, as a teacher, as an admin, if there's an area of learning upgrade that you'd like us to feature in a webinar, just shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll be able to work on that as I put together the content calendar for the fall. So thank you all very much for attending. I appreciate you attending the first webinar here. Hope you found it useful. And again, I'll be emailing out the link to the recording, and you can always reach out to me at drew@learningupgrade.com.